It was here that Charles Darwin noticed something extraordinary about the island's residents. In here, animals evolved in near total isolation, developing traits so audacious and beautifully specific to their environment. Darwin famously credited the wildlife of these islands as the inspiration for his theory of evolution. Let's explore some of the incredible species that helped define modern science. If any single creature embodies the spirit of the Galapagos, it is the giant tortoise, Chelonoidus niger, the very animal that gave the islands their name, Galapago. These are the largest living tortoises on Earth, with adult males weighing up to 250 kilograms and measuring 1.5 meters from beak to tail. And they are extraordinarily old. Individuals routinely live past 100 years, with some estimated to have reached 175. There is something profoundly humbling about standing near one. They move with glacial deliberation, grazing on cacti, grasses, and fruits with an air of complete indifference to the world around them. They are not hurried by any predator. Nothing natural on these islands threatened them until humans arrived. This fearlessness is characteristic of Galapagos wildlife. The animals simply did not evolve a fear response to large land predators, because there were none. Different islands shaped different shells. On lush, highland islands with abundant low vegetation, tortoises evolved domed shells and short necks, no need to reach up. On drier islands where food grows high on cacti, evolution sculpted saddleback shells with a raised front edge and longer necks, allowing the tortoises to stretch upward. Darwin noticed this, but it was his ornithological colleague John Gould who later made him appreciate the full implication. The environment shapes the animal. By the 20th century, whaling ships and settlers had reduced tortoise populations from over 250,000 to around 15,000. Conservation efforts have since brought populations back from the brink on several islands. While the giant tortoise moves with a slow, ancient rhythm, another prehistoric resident shares these inland trails, one that looks like it steps straight out of a dragon's legend. The Galapagos land iguana, Conolaphus subcristatus. This prehistoric-looking reptile that would not look out of place in a fantasy novel. Bright yellow and orange under the equatorial sun, with a spiny crest running along their back. Males can grow to 1.5 meters and weigh up to 13 kilograms. Charles Darwin described them as ugly animals. A famously poor assessment, since in the right light they are spectacular. Land iguanas are primarily herbivores, with a particular fondness for the prickly pear cactus. Spines, pads, and all. They have evolved thick, leathery lips for exactly this purpose. In a remarkable display of interspecies cooperation, land iguanas frequently allowed Darwin's finches to perch on their backs and pick parasitic ticks from between their scales. The iguana adopts an upright posture to make the work easier. It is the Galapagos equivalent of the African oxpecker and rhinoceros, a tiny interlude of mutualism on a sun-baked lava field. But don't let the size of these dragons distract you. If you look down at the sun-baked stones, you'll spot a much smaller lightning-fast survivor that practically lives on the pulse of the volcano. The Galapagos lava lizard, Microlophus spp. Found on almost every island in the archipelago, they are the most commonly encountered reptile in the islands. Small, quick, and remarkably bold, these lizards dart across the black volcanic rocks with blistering speed, pausing only to perform rapid, rhythmic push-up displays that serve as territorial declarations or courtship signals. Males are considerably larger than females and often sport vivid throat patches of orange, red, or yellow depending on the island they inhabit. The fact that each major island has evolved its own distinct lava lizard species, despite the islands being geologically young, is itself a miniature lesson in speciation. The same pattern of divergence that Darwin saw in his famous finches plays out, at a smaller scale, in every crack and crevice of Galapagos lava. But in the Galapagos, life doesn't just stay on the rocks. For some reptiles, the lure of the ocean was too strong to resist, leading to the evolution of the world's only seafaring lizard. Of all the Galapagos' evolutionary achievements, the marine iguana, Amblyrhynchus cristatus, is perhaps the most astonishing. It is the only lizard on Earth that regularly enters the ocean to feed, and it dives up to 30 meters deep to graze on submerged algae. Darwin, who was not always generous with his adjectives, called them hideous-looking and imps of darkness. What he was really looking at was millions of years of adaptation, compressed into one extraordinary animal. Marine iguanas are jet black, the better to absorb heat from the lava rocks after a cold Pacific dive, though males on some islands turn vivid red and green during breeding season. They have flattened tails for powerful underwater propulsion, shorter, blunter snouts than their land-based cousins for scraping algae off rocks, and special salt-excreting glands that allow them to sneeze excess salt from their bloodstream in dramatic white plumes. Few sights in the Galapagos are as viscerally alien as a beach carpeted with hundreds of black iguanas, draped over each other like living lava, sneezing rhythmically in the sunshine. Adapting to the ocean is one way to survive, but for other species, the secret wasn't in the surf, it was in the beak. Moving from the jagged coastline to the inland shrubs, we find the tiny architects of modern biology, Darwin's finches. No group of animals is more directly associated with the birth of evolutionary theory than the 18 species collectively known as Darwin's finches. They are not particularly flashy birds. Mostly small, brownish-black, easily overlooked. What makes them extraordinary is their beaks. From a single ancestral finch species that colonized the islands millions of years ago, evolution has produced an almost implausible variety of beak shapes, each tuned to a different food source. Thick, nutcracker beaks for crushing hard seeds. Long, thin, probing beaks for extracting insects from bark. Cactus specialist beaks for piercing prickly pear flowers. Even a woodpecker finch that uses a cactus spine as a tool to extract grubs from dead wood. One of the very few tool-using birds in the world. Darwin himself did not immediately grasp the significance of the finches during his 1835 visit. It was only when the ornithologist John Gould identified his specimens as 13 distinct species that Darwin began to understand what the islands were telling him. The finches became, retrospectively, the most famous birds in scientific history. Finches mastered the seeds and the trees, but the cliffs belonged to the archipelago's most famous aviators, birds known as much for their vibrant fashion as their precision diving. If Darwin's finches provide the intellectual drama of the Galapagos, the blue-footed booby, Sula nabuxii, provides the comic theater. The name booby comes from the Spanish bobo, foolish, because early sailors found them so unafraid of humans that they walked right up and were easily caught. This tameness, as always in the Galapagos, is not stupidity. It is the result of having evolved in a place with no land predators. The blue feet, however, are absolutely serious business. The brilliant turquoise blue color of a male's feet is an honest signal of his health and genetic quality, derived from the carotenoid pigments in his fish-based diet. Males perform an elaborate high-stepping dance to display their magnificent feet to potential mates, lifting each foot with theatrical deliberateness as if wearing shoes he once admired. Females are extraordinarily attentive to foot color. A male whose feet have been experimentally painted a duller blue attracts far fewer mates. The bluer the boot, the better the bird. While the blue-footed booby is famous for its vibrant footwear and quirky high-stepping dance, it shares these cliffs with a cousin that prefers a more classic look. Dressed in striking white and black, the Nazca booby trades the colorful dance for a reputation as the largest and most formidable of the Galapagos boobies. The Nazca booby, Sula granti, formerly classified as the masked booby, is the largest booby in the Galapagos, a sleek, brilliant white seabird with a vivid orange bill and dark facial mask. Where the blue-footed booby is comical, the Nazca is imperious, a white arrow plunging into the ocean at 100 kilometers per hour from heights of 30 meters, folding its wings at the last instant to spear through the water like a living torpedo in pursuit of fish. Nazca boobies are among the few bird species that practice obligate siblicide. Females typically lay 2 eggs, but once the first chick hatches, it systematically evicts the second egg or chick from the nest, and the parents make no attempt to intervene. It is harsh, but effective. In an environment where food can be scarce, 1 chick that thrives is a better evolutionary investment than 2 that struggle. Nature in the Galapagos does not soften its edges. When the bright-footed divers retire for the evening, the shift changes. Under the cover of darkness, the world's only nocturnal gull takes to the sky to hunt in the moonlight. The Galapagos has 2 endemic gulls, the swallow-tailed gull and the lava gull, and both are remarkable in their own right. The swallow-tailed gull, Criagris furcatus, holds a unique distinction. It is the only fully nocturnal gull in the world. It feeds exclusively at night, using enormous eyes, relatively speaking, adapted for low-light vision to locate the squid and fish that rise to near-surface waters after dark. Its plumage is striking. White body, gray back, blood-red eye ring, and its calls are an eerie, rattling accompaniment to any night spent on the cliffs of Genovese Island. The lava gull, Leucophaeus fuliginosus, by contrast, holds the melancholy distinction of being the rarest gull on Earth, with an estimated total population of just 300 to 400 individuals, all of them living in the Galapagos. Its smoky black and gray plumage is the color of the volcanic rock it inhabits, and its red-rimmed eyes give it a permanently indignant expression. It scavenges beaches and harbors with unhurried confidence, as if aware that every individual counts. While some birds adapted to the night, others gave up the sky entirely. On the western edges of the islands lives a bird that traded the power of flight for the ultimate underwater advantage. In a world full of birds that would sacrifice anything to fly, the flightless cormorant, Ninopterum harisi, looked at that bargain and decided to renegotiate. Found only on the islands of Fernandina and Isabella, this bird has the most reduced wings of any living cormorant. Tiny, tattered-looking appendages it holds out to dry in the sun after diving, more from ancestral habit than any practical necessity. It cannot fly even a centimeter. It does not need to. On the coast of the Galapagos, with no land predators and extraordinarily rich underwater hunting grounds fed by the cold Cromwell Current, The flightless cormorant has traded aerodynamic excellence for aquatic mastery. Its legs are powerful, its feet large and webbed, and its diving ability is superb. It is one of the most vivid illustrations in the entire archipelago of evolution making trade-offs, and of how quickly a species can lose a seemingly essential trait when the selection pressure that maintained it disappears. While the cormorant stays grounded, our next traveler is a master of the air, returning to these specific volcanic cliffs for a spectacular courtship dance after years spent roaming the open ocean. The waved albatross, Fabastria irorata, is a creature of contradictions. On land, it is cumbersome, cartoonishly so, wobbling across the cliff tops of Hispaniola Island on legs that seem designed by a committee with no aeronautical brief. In the air, it is transformed into one of the ocean's supreme aeronauts, gliding on a 2-meter wingspan across thousands of miles of Pacific with barely a wing beat, using dynamic soaring, a technique that exploits differences in wind speed at different altitudes to achieve near-perpetual flight without exhausting effort. The waved albatross is virtually endemic to the Galapagos. Around 35,000 pairs nest on Hispaniola, making it the world's entire breeding population for the species. Their courtship ritual is among the most elaborate and theatrical in the bird world. Pairs engage in long synchronized sequences of bill clacking, sky pointing, deep bowing, and mooing calls that can continue for hours. These rituals are thought to reinforce pair bonds that can last the bird's entire 40-year lifespan. The Galapagos are their stage, and they play it beautifully. The albatross follows the wind, but our next resident follows the cold currents. It seems impossible to find a penguin here at the equator, yet in this land of contradictions, they thrive. Most people associate penguins with Antarctica, which is why encountering one in the equatorial Pacific invariably produces a moment of cognitive dissonance. The Galapagos penguin, Spheniscus mandiculus, is the only penguin that breeds in the northern hemisphere, and it owes its surprising existence to the cold Humboldt and Cromwell currents, which push nutrient-rich, frigid water up along the western Galapagos coasts and create conditions cold enough for penguins to thrive within sight of the equator. They are small, the second smallest penguin species on Earth, with white bellies and gray-black backs, and a slender black band across their chest. They are breathtakingly fast underwater, twisting and accelerating after fish with missile-like precision, but on land they shuffle in the shade of lava overhangs or burrow into crevices to avoid the heat. Their population is small and precarious, fewer than 2,000 individuals, making them the rarest penguin in the world, and El Niño events that warm the surrounding ocean and crash fish populations can devastate their numbers in a single season. The penguins aren't the only ones enjoying these nutrient-rich waters. Sharing the rocky coves are the island's most charismatic socialites, known for their playful nature both on land and under the waves. Of all the animals in the Galapagos sea lion, Zalaphus woolabiki, is the one most likely to greet you personally. These are deeply social, irrepressibly curious animals, and they have a particular fondness for human company, or at least for the entertainment possibilities that snorkelers present. It is entirely normal to enter the water near a colony and find yourself surrounded by young sea lions performing torpedo rolls, spiraling around you in formations, and, their favorite game, blowing bubbles into your mask with the gleeful energy of children who have been waiting all morning for someone to play with. Beach dynamics, however, are another matter. Bull sea lions are enormous, up to 250 kilograms, and they defend territories on prime beaches with fearsome intensity, issuing deep, throaty barks that carry across the surf. Females and pups form harems that the dominant bull patrols ceaselessly, often spending so much energy on defense that he loses condition rapidly and is eventually displaced by a younger, stronger challenger. Life at the top is brief. Meanwhile, the pups, with their enormous dark eyes and impossibly soft fur, are among the most disarming young animals on the planet. On land, the sea lion is king of the rocks, but as we push off the shore and dive into the deeper mangroves, the scenery changes. Here, the barks of the colony fade away, replaced by the rhythmic, effortless strokes of the island's most iconic marine reptile. The green sea turtle, Chelonia midas, is one of the ocean's most ancient mariners, and the Galapagos Islands provide some of the most important nesting beaches in the eastern Pacific. Females haul themselves ashore on dark, warm nights to excavate deep nests in the sand with their rear flippers, laying clutches of 50 to 200 eggs before retreating to the sea, a process unchanged for 150 million years. Underwater, green turtles are transformed. Their heavy terrestrial awkwardness dissolves into effortless wing-like flight through crystal water. They graze on sea grasses and algae in the sheltered bays around the islands, and snorkelers frequently find themselves nose to beak with a turtle too busy eating to be impressed by the encounter. These animals can live for over 80 years and travel thousands of miles across open ocean. Yet they return with uncanny precision to the exact beach where they were born. The turtles find sanctuary in the shallow mangroves and reefs, but to find the true monarch of the Galapagos depths, you have to head into the open blue. Here, the sunlight filters down onto the massive star-speckled back of the largest fish on the planet. The whale shark, Rhynchodon typus, is the largest fish on Earth, a gentle, filter-feeding behemoth that can reach 12 meters in length and weigh over 20 tons. The waters around the Galapagos, particularly around Wolf and Darwin Islands in the far north of the archipelago, are among the most important aggregation sites in the world for this species, drawing hundreds of individuals from across the Pacific. Scientists believe the area is a critical feeding and possibly reproductive site. Research in recent years has revealed that the majority of whale sharks visiting the northern Galapagos are pregnant females. An encounter with a whale shark ranks among the most profound wildlife experiences on the planet. Swimming alongside an animal the size of a school bus, its vast, spotted flank passing slowly beside you, its cavernous mouth filtering the water ahead, is an exercise in recalibrating your sense of scale. Whale sharks are harmless to humans. Their prey consists of plankton, small fish and squid drawn in by their passive, gaping swim. They are, as a species, patience made enormous. If the whale shark represents oceanic serenity, the scalloped hammerhead, Sphyrna lewini, delivers oceanic electricity. The waters around Wolf and Darwin Islands are famous among divers for the extraordinary aggregations of scalloped hammerheads that gather here in groups of hundreds, schooling tightly in the strong currents like a slow-moving gray thundercloud, moving through the blue water with unsettling collective purpose. The extraordinary hammer-shaped head, the cephalofoil, is packed with electrosensory pores called ampullae of Lorenzini that allow the shark to detect the bioelectric fields of buried prey with extraordinary sensitivity. The wide spacing of the eyes and nostrils gives the hammerhead a genuinely panoramic sensory picture of its environment. Schooling behavior in hammerheads remains something of a mystery. They may aggregate for social reasons, for reproductive encounters, or simply because the strong, cold upwellings around the northern islands create ideal hunting conditions. Whatever the reason, watching a school pass overhead is one of the defining experiences of Galapagos diving. Every species described here because of millions of years of isolation. Because water proved an insurmountable barrier to predators, competitors, and diseases that reshaped life everywhere else. Today, however, that seal has been broken by invasive species, climate change, and tourism. The very isolation that created these wonders now makes them acutely fragile. As the most intelligent species on the planet, it is our responsibility to save this delicate ecosystem, not destroy it.